Hello, welcome to Ask the Coach. This is our 77th edition of what we do every 2 weeks. We bring you coaches from all over the world, actually. I'm Angela Cripps, the MD of the Recruiting Gym. This is our Africa special. So we've done Middle East special, Far East special, American special we've done twice, and European special. We have not done an African. And someone saw this week and went, can I get involved in the Australian special? So that's next. We'll be coming to Australia and New Zealand. So we'll be focusing on them. I'm going to get the coaches to introduce themselves in a second. But while I'm doing that and while they're doing that, you can get to vote on the questions. So we've got the questions here. If you're over on LinkedIn Live, we've got the questions there as well. So put the number into the comment box on LinkedIn if you would prefer to have the question answered earlier. Otherwise, we just go with 1 to 6. This takes about 45 minutes, but if you haven't got that time, you might want to vote your question up. But if not, don't worry. A lot of people are here for the whole 45 minutes. Grab a drink, grab some food, and enjoy knowledge from Africa. So I'm going to come to Vanessa first, because Vanessa, you've done this a few times. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Awesome. Well, first of all, happy Friday, everyone. My name is Vanessa Raath. I am based on the Garden Route in South Africa, a place called Plettenberg Bay. And I'm actually one of the trainers in the Recruiting Gym, which is always a pleasure. What I do for my day job is I'm a talent sourcing trainer. I do a lot of keynote speaking, and I'm just passionate about people in the recruitment industry in general. And I'm super excited we're finally doing an Africa special. So thanks for having us on, Angela.
My pleasure. Gita, I'm coming to you next. I got to meet you on our Meet Your Recruiter weeks. So thank you for that. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
I'm Gita Winter. I have about 9 years in recruitment experience, probably going on since 2006. I run my own business and have worked in large-scale corporate agencies, one-man shows, large labor brokers. I've got an internal recruitment experience. I've got broad experience. I operate from South Africa and Johannesburg, but I have recruited across Africa. I think what I'm most passionate about is the professionalization of our industry. It is something incredibly close to my heart, and I feel that these kinds of sessions certainly contribute to that.
Oh, you're a person after my own heart there, Gita. Yeah, totally reiterate that. And the person that's a lot newer to me, Sam Hayward. I heard about you earlier this year because you're running a conference in South Africa in 4 weeks. So we'd love to hear what you do.
So glad you mentioned that. Yes, I've founded Cape Town's first recruitment conference called Recruiters Unite, which we had I think, Gita, were you with us last year? Aloha. And yes, so last year we had Mitch with us, sorry, not Mitch, Hung. And then this year we've also made a little bit more international with 2 international speakers, obviously Van's coming back as well. So that's really exciting. And then I've also been in the industry, I think I'm on 21 years now. Yes, very, very exciting. And then I do mainly consulting and contracting TA services.
Fantastic. Wow. I mean, yeah, if we added up all the years, it's definitely over 100.
Yes.
My 35th year. So this is what we love, isn't it? Let's get people together with knowledge, with experience, and just share, because we've always got new people coming into our industry, and we forget sometimes with the knowledge we've got what it was like in that first 3 months, 6 months, year. And certainly, yeah, we can fast track their career.
Is she frozen?
Oh, I think Angela has frozen. We did say before we went live today that this is probably going to happen. It's going to be one of those sessions. So listen, why don't we just get started, the 3 of us? We'll do what we do in Africa, and we just kind of make a plan, right? And we just get on with things. So while Angela is frozen, let's just be South Africans. And we're actually going to start with the first question.
Like load shedding.
Yeah, exactly. We'll maybe Angela's got load shedding in the UK.
This is the perfect South African version.
Well, we all sit in our houses with solar. Sam and I were discussing.
Yes,
so we're fine. Angela's got load shedding.
Oh,
so Gita, we're actually kicking things off with you. Question number 1: And what we are going to ask you is, what are the differing legislative laws and nuances for recruiting in other African countries? So if you want to share with us, you kick us off.
Righty. So I think for anybody that wants to recruit outside of the South African borders into Africa, they really have to, and I think it was one of the recruiting gyms where it was somebody was talking about in America, that every state is like recruiting for a completely different country. There's different laws and regulations. It's much the same on the African continent. There are a lot of similarities, but you've got to understand in terms of recruitment, specifically things like the differing probation periods, the minimum prescribed benefits in terms of national health, social securities, those kinds of things. There are some very, very different minimum statutory leave regulations in other countries. And you can't, it's not a matter of just, I feel like recruiting in Zambia today. You really, really have to go and understand, what do I need to know about Zambia? How would that influence my recruitment contract? How would that influence the contracts, the employee contracts that I would get? From a nuance perspective, I think it's like you really have to understand the different cultures. So if you think Zambia is going to be quick, think again. You're going to be months and months and months of talking and cajoling and working nicely until you get that contract. It is certainly not a quick process. And there's also very differing cultures per country. For the most part, in the major Western emerging markets, you've definitely got some similarities where there's a very hierarchical structure, and the more senior you are or the more elderly you are, the more decision-making capability you have. And therefore, from a recruitment point of view, if you know, or if you're not sure that you're dealing with the decision maker, it's a very different kind of recruitment process altogether. So my advice would be, don't try to say, I'm going to recruit in Africa. Pick 2 or 3 countries where there's very similar kind of legislative environments and nuances. Emerging markets in so Nigeria, Zambia, and say Kenya, very different, similar cultures, very similar kind of legislative spaces. Start there. It's much easier to build on that than trying to do or learn 50 different ones all at once.
Now, can you hear me? Am I actually here or not? Or is it just me?
You are here.
I love that, because Donovan has made a comment, and we're going to be talking about this in question 2, but that hasn't happened for ages. I think my laptop's having a hot flush. So I've put a fan on it. And he just decided no, so I've shut everything else down.
And we've got stronger internet here in Africa, Angela. Stop making excuses now.
I can't believe that. It's brilliant. But I did get some key elements in there, and I love the idea, Gita, of doing your research and identifying where the cultures are the same, because you've got so many different countries that you could choose from. So actually grouping them in that way, making it easier for yourself and tackling those at the same time, then that makes really sense. Vanessa, did you want to add something to that?
I just wanted to back up what Gita said. Absolutely. And I want to give you a real life example. I was working on a massive project for Twitter, back when it was still Twitter, and they were building their African offices, their African headquarters in Accra, in Ghana. And one of the requirements was that they needed to speak Tui, which is a African language. Now, I did my research. I mean, it's what I do. I'm a researcher. I did loads on the internet, but I didn't ask enough questions, because there are 2 versions of Tui. There's Nigerian and there's Ghanaian. So I actually found people, they were listing this as a language that they spoke, but because there's almost 2 different dialects, it kind of discounted a lot of the candidates that I was dealing with. So there's research, and then there's even deeper research for Africa, and there's speaking to people on the ground. Just wanted to give you that real life example of learn from my mistakes.
No, that is fantastic, and it's that level of detail that can make the difference between a successful placement and not, isn't it? So sharing that's what this is all about. Come along, learn, understand the information. Okay,
if I can add one more thing to that, they have a very strong sense of decorum there. And if you are engaging, whether it be a candidate or a client for that matter, if you're engaging for the first time, until you've built a rapport, they like to be called Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so. You can't go, hi, Gita. It's like almost an immediate door closer. So small things are important.
Yeah, that because we do have that here. We say to people, don't be too over familiar. When you first meet someone, you don't know what their personality type is, but actually as a culture, we would never say Mr. and Mrs. So knowing that, yeah, makes a big difference. Sam, I'm going to bring you on so that we can tackle question 2, which seems very prevalent with me today. But the question was, do candidates in South Africa particularly have electricity during load shedding? So if you could just explain what load shedding is first, because there's lots of people, including me, hadn't heard of it until last year.
Sure thing. So load shedding is, our government hasn't maintained our solar factory, or not solar factories, they're energy plants. So they're breaking. So they need to shut down a plant and then shed us of power where we don't have electricity. It's majority 2.5 hours, but we have different stages. And then if it gets worse, we can be out for about 4 hours. I think one stage last year, we were out for about 18 hours a day. It was for 2-3 days that it was like that. So it wasn't a long period. I don't want to be over dramatic about it, but it is quite insane. I mean, thinking if you have a newborn at home or children to feed, it can be quite intense. However, in saying that, and I know the panel will agree, South Africans are so resilient. You can throw anything at us and we'll make a plan. And solutions have become, dare I say, affordable, but to the working class, I think more affordable. So there are UPSs. Please don't tell me what it stands for or ask me what it stands for. What a UPS?
Yeah.
It's plugged in, and that can give you, I think, just under 4 hours. Those batteries do need to be replaced, but I would say most South Africans who are working from home have UPSs. A lot of privileged people have solar, so it wouldn't even affect us. And then the office buildings now have generators. So there are far and few people who need to work from home who don't have electricity. I've interviewed over 120 people this last month, and not one person doesn't have a solution. So yeah, it is a problem for South Africa, but not for the working class who work remote.
I love that. Certainly recruiters, we are solution people, aren't we? So, and I'm guessing it's out of necessity after a period of time. 4 hours, you might be able to cope, but yeah, if it's going on for that length of time, I mean, that's just horrendous. And do you get warning this is going to be the time that it's going to be?
Sometimes. So again, another South African company, fantastic. It's called Eskom se Push. If you know South African swear words, it could sound familiar to you, but it's PUSH, push, and they give us notifications. But for example, this morning, early hours of this morning, we were told it's level 4, and we weren't given much notice, and it's indefinite, level 4. So we don't actually know what the situation is at the moment. So it depends which way the wind is blowing on the day.
This is just phenomenal to me. Yeah, it would be very, very frustrating. Van, you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the app. So just to give, the non-South Africans, you can see it here on my phone. So you can see we're sitting at stage 4 at the moment, and we can see when the next power outage is. As you know, we've recently moved and luckily put in solar, which I tell you is life-changing. People have been telling us for years, get solar, and we always knew we were moving, so it wasn't worth it. But from a recruiting perspective, the difficulty is that there's a very negative image out there about power supply in Africa, and this obviously has an impact on work. Nigeria in particular can have up to 20 hours of no power a day, and they are not as progressive as us with the solar and the UPS systems that we have. I mean, South Africans probably have more money to sort out the solutions that they need, and it's a massive concern. But if your if you are a remote worker and you freelance and you work all over the world as we do, you realize that you have to make a plan. And that's why the kind of people that you're looking to recruit in Africa, don't be put off because they have made a plan already. And that's kind of what I wanted to add to the conversation.
Thank you. And Margot, thank you for the uninterrupted power supply, the UPS. Donovan's got some solution as well that he has. So he's got a 12-volt alarm batteries for his Wi-Fi and a small battery for his laptop as well. So you're right, people were picking up there. Oh, sorry, Therese, you had it as well. Picking up from those, making sure we're different there. If you have a question for the coaches, please feel free to put it into the chat. So yeah, Donovan's earlier is how is South African internet better? Well, it is better than mine today for whatever reason, to pick up from there. Lynn's got what's Lynn got? She's got solar, 2 batteries and an inverter. she's not taking any risks. It's coming through. Brilliant. Van, I'm going to keep you on. We're going to go to question 3. So question 3 then, how does the tax structure in South Africa, how does that work? And it was a double one. And is private medical aid or health insurance mandatory there? Let's find out.
So the reason why I raise this is that I get approached by a lot of companies looking to hire skills in Africa. So they're either US-based companies, a lot out of Middle East, Dubai, UK, Europe, even Australia, because they know that South Africans are hardworking. They really do provide a good service, and let's face it, the labor is a little bit cheaper. But what they don't understand is that there are certain things that you need to provide a South African worker with. Where I've lived in the UK, and I understand you've got the NHS, however effective or ineffective that might be, but you don't need to worry about having health insurance. Where in South Africa, if you're working class, we all pay for private medical health insurance. It's not cheap. It's I don't know what percentage it is of your salary. I'm very lucky. I'm on my husband's medical aid. He's employed, but it's a lot of money, and you have to have it, because if something does happen to you out of the blue in December, I suddenly needed a knee operation. It was completely covered by private insurance. So you need to have it for the just in case. Now, a lot of companies know that they want to pay this person this amount, but the way its salaries are structured a lot in South Africa, and the rest of Africa is going this way, is that you often will get a portion on top of that for your medical insurance. To give you a very extreme example, if you do have an accident and you don't have private health insurance, you go to a government hospital. Now, even to a government hospital these days, you have to take your own bedding. Your family has to bring you meals, because that isn't actually provided. So if you don't have medical health insurance, you basically, it's like, I always relate it to, it's almost like playing Russian roulette, because it's something that you definitely need. Another thing is that our tax isn't complicated, but our tax is high. I mean, we're sitting at about a 42-43% in the range where people will be working, which is on par with the UK, but you get a lot more for that in the UK, things like the NHS. So people need to just take that into consideration when they are hiring people in Africa, that the tax is on par, but we don't get as much. I mean, most South Africans also are sending their children to privately be educated, which also costs more than going to having a government education. In certain areas, the government education is better. Some areas, it's not so good. So what we're seeing emerging is a lot of companies that are now putting them in that third party situation, where they're running the people working in the African countries tax for them. They, organizing their medical aid, because you can structure it from a tax benefit perspective. And just to be aware, and for them to do their homework, because sometimes I think people reach out to people in Africa thinking, oh, yippee, this is going to be great and cheap, whatever. Yeah, payroll, deal, Oyster, there's a whole lot of them. But it doesn't actually always work out that way because of the tax situation.
Okay, so there's a lot to take in there. My goodness. I mean, I had no idea that all of this is going on. And anyone that's either looking to move there or is looking to work there, this all needs to be taken into consideration. So as part of the benefits package then, is this something that's very high up on the list of benefits of what people want to know straight away?
It generally is. So people that I've spoken to here is like, what do they cover? Like, do they cover medical aid? Do we get any other benefits? So it's mainly coming from the candidate side of what does the company cover. Then you go back to the company and they're like, well, why do we need to pay for that? And you have to pay for that.
Yeah, so lots of negotiation from the recruiter's side.
Yeah.
So there was a comment here that was deal or play role. If you've got any links to any of the things that we're referencing, please put them into the chat. So the companies, the app that you were talking about. Sam, the link to your conference that people want to go to in Cape Town, 7th of March. It's in my head because it's the same day as our 1000th episode on the daily workout that we do every morning. While I've got you there, quick break. Thank you to Job Adder, who are our sponsors of Ask the Coach. They also sponsor our Meet the Expert, which is every month, where we bring you an expert, half an hour, 45 minutes of free training for everyone. So if you need that, I've got one other request as well. We've got Sean over on LinkedIn, who is had 1,000 applications and doesn't get any answers, doesn't get an interview. So I've put his LinkedIn in there. Sean, I have had a quick look at your LinkedIn as well, and I know we definitely can help you with regards to that. So you can definitely get some support. We'll put, if you go to the recruiting gym, if you click on the recruiting gym after this, there's at the top, there's 6 pro bono courses. And there's lots of support and help in there. There's nearly 500 sessions, so you'll be able to focus in on the things, and we'll be happy to give you some support if we can. Okay, right, let's go to the next question. Thank you for that. This is really eye-opening stuff. We've got no idea here in the UK as to what's going on. Okay, click done answering on that one. Start answering question 4. So I'm back to Gita. Let's put you over there on the slide. So this one is, how would you describe the job market in the African nations in terms of its competitiveness and demand for different skill sets? That might relate back to Sean and his 1,000 applications.
I think Vanessa very aptly covered that South Africans are in high demand because our labor rate is relatively low comparative to other countries. And that makes us as a country very competitive, but also adds complexity to recruiting in South Africa because a lot of South African companies simply can't compete for engineers, IT skills against US dollars or euros. So it is particularly competitive from that perspective. But likewise, in emerging African countries, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, the likes, they also likewise have high IT skills and engineering demands. And some of the largest gas mining projects sit in other African countries. And we lose engineers and IT skills in South Africa hand over fist. In part, I suppose, because the projects are elsewhere, but also because you're getting paid in dollars, because a lot of the gas mining projects and the like, internationally funded projects. But also because we have, like Sam and Vanessa aptly said, so many challenges in terms of infrastructure and trust in government and the like. So African nations are becoming, even Zimbabwe, strangely enough, in terms of mining resources, more competitive than ever before. So it is a very unique space at the moment and opens up a lot of opportunities from a recruiting perspective, whether you are here outsourcing to other companies internationally or have the opportunity to present or to recruit in other African countries from around the world. So I would say at the moment, the African continent is particularly competitive, as opposed to, say, even 5 or 7 years ago.
That's fantastic to hear. So yeah, certainly there are a lot of areas in the world that are struggling. I mean, China even. Who would have thought that China would be in trouble? But that's going to have a knock-on to everyone. That it's something we'll be talking about in our global politics and economics when we get to the second half of the year for our Hiring Happenings podcast. So if you're interested in knowing what's going on around the world, we'll get that link in there as well, as we look at hiring happenings with a pestle twist. So each month we take one of the letters and work through those. Wonderful. Okay, so looking good then. Opportunities, hence why we wanted to do this as well. So if you hadn't considered Africa before, then maybe some people are here to say, actually, yeah, this is an area that could be positive for us. And I'm glad we've got some positive spin on that as well, because I must admit it was shocking with the load shedding, but we can see everyone's got their own ways of resolving that, so we don't have to worry. Brilliant. Okay, where are we? Question 5. So let's bring Sam on. So question 5 then, we've got, what is the relationship between recruitment agencies and companies in Africa as a whole? So let's get into how you're perceived, as it were, as an industry, and how that relationship is.
I think it's improving. As the skill shortage became worse 2020, I think a lot more companies looked to recruitment agencies. And I can remember in the beginning, way back when, we would always have to deal with HR, and there was quite a hierarchy to get through to the hiring manager. Whereas today, and quite specifically in South Africa, we're dealing directly with line managers majority of the time. So I think recruiters are respected more. I think that companies understand just how hard it is to find the skills. I think there was definitely a gap where companies try to do it themselves. And I'm not talking about hiring an internal TA team. They would get their hiring manager, come, you need to get 5 developers, or you need to, get the QAs. And they saw that didn't work. I work with a few international companies, and I mean, I could be wrong because I don't work with thousands of companies, but what I am finding, especially with the companies in the States, there is still a little bit of hierarchy, and there is you dealing with the HR manager, you submitting your CVs through the portal, and I don't really have access to the people that are hiring. Yeah. Whereas in South Africa, it feels a little bit more, I don't want to say casual, but the relationship's a lot more personable, which is fantastic for us because now we can recruit better and more accurately. So yeah, I think that, and it's lifting the game of recruiters because now you've got nowhere to hide. You don't have the portals to hide behind. You're dealing directly with the people who are making decisions. So it's looking good, yeah.
Definitely got to build those relationships then, haven't you? And you're right, 2020 was a bit like the teachers as well. Everyone had a much higher respect for teachers when they had their own education at home.
School. Yeah.
And recruitment were very much in that same vein where people, because 2021 just went mad, didn't it? And everyone was like, yeah, we could do this. And they're like, no, we can't. So thank goodness for that people see it is a profession. It is something that people can develop, can have a whole career. You can see here, you can have a whole career and you determine where you want to go in the industry. So I'm so glad that has happened for you in Africa, because that contact with the hiring manager, oh my God, it's so important, isn't it, Sam?
Makes a world of difference. Absolutely.
Yeah. So those direct relationships, communication, not hiding behind the tech, and actually having real conversations, that's what makes recruitment work. So let's make sure we're pushing that as much as possible. Okay, we're doing really well today with regards to our questions. So I can see we've got a lot of people over on LinkedIn. So if you do have a question around the recruitment industry in any way, shape or form in Africa, then please do put a question in the chat. And we'll pick it up there. Come and join us on Crowdcast if you want to get the full experience here as well. Right, let's get Van back on. So Van, this is you then on this question. And I think this is one that we could probably go on for the 10 minutes, actually. 10 15 minutes that we've got. So we've got a wealth of knowledge that can be shared in the recruitment industry. So which networking or support groups would you recommend people join if their focus is on Africa?
What I always encourage people to do, and I actually did this myself with the major projects that I work on, is I always try and chat to recruiters on the ground. So I've got a new role coming up in like Kenya or Tanzania, is connect with the agencies there, find out what is the kind of like, what's the status, what's the situation like. I think that's the piece that often people miss, is that they just go straight in and try and talk to the candidates without getting an idea of the lay of the land or the landscape or how should you best recruit. Then they actually realize the error of their ways, and then they start trying to connect with recruiters. So what I do recommend, let me just quickly grab a link over here, I'm going to put it into the chat, is very lucky we've got a very good recruiting community here in Africa. I'm going to put the link into the chat. I don't know if you can transfer that into the LinkedIn chat, Angela. Thank you very much. And connect with a recruiter there. I mean, even if you go in and you pay them like a consulting fee to get their knowledge, set up a couple of sessions with them, they don't actually need to be doing the recruiting. However, I always recommend that you do let the locals do the recruiting, because you partner with them, you tell them exactly what you want, get them to do that side of the recruiting, the finding of the people, the interviewing, and then you can actually, do whatever you need to do on the other side. So for me, I think that needs to happen. So to go back to like, who should you connect with, your communities? I think another thing that people seem to not realize is the platforms and the different usage that you get across different countries. So where US, North America, prolific users of LinkedIn, huge numbers, similar in Europe, not to such a great extent. But in Africa, trying to recruit using LinkedIn is actually quite difficult, because it's not a very popular platform. So I have actually had amazing success recruiting through Africa, looking at Facebook, looking at X. I mean, X is incredibly low on data usage. That's a big plus here, because data is at a premium in Africa. So you've got to think, where are people going to be the most accessible? Where am I going to get hold of them? So I would not go down your traditional methods of only looking at LinkedIn. Look at other platforms. Find the communities. Another thing that's a nugget of really good places to go and look here is that Meetup is actually very popular in Africa. So Meetup's been around for, I think, 21 years now. And you can find a lot of groups through Africa on Meetup channels. So it's not your typical way of how do you go and join people. And then when you get into the groups, give back before you ask, is like my golden rule anywhere, in the world. If you're doing this, it's about community. How can you as an international organization give back to the community before you start demanding that you get talents and candidates in front of you?
I would love to add to that. Vanessa is so right. And that is incredibly valuable advice. But from a recruitment community, I would say that you need to, like Samantha's Recruiters Unite and APSO's conference in Johannesburg and the networking events that happen, Van holds some lovely coffee sessions. Collaboration in our industry is not the enemy. And I think we've got to separate the concept of collaboration from the concept of competitiveness, because they are not the same. And you can get such value from connecting with other recruiters and participating in industry events and getting calls to action from our governing bodies and our professional bodies and stepping up and becoming parts of those communities. The value you get from that far outweighs the perceived risk of colluding is not even a thing. What am I of stealing IP and all sorts of nonsense that goes on in people's minds. It's a thing that other people have created. It's not the reality that we live in.
I totally agree with that. I used to always collaborate with other agencies that were close to me. If there was ever a new one that opened up, I would go and introduce myself. I'd walk in And dependent on how they reacted to me, that was my first indicator. Do I actually want to collaborate with them or not? Because sometimes you'd walk into their office and they'd like take things off the wall and they'd be covering things up when you introduce yourself. And you're like, okay, yeah, this is not the relationship that I'm looking for. But what we'd do is we'd sit down and say, okay, what do you do? This is what we do. Where's the gaps? Because of course, yeah, if we're going to want to try and supply on our side, but you might do something we don't. And therefore now we can work together and we can collaborate and you can supply that, because otherwise shiny thing, we're like that in recruitment, aren't we? We try, you can't ask for something, you go, yeah, we'll try and do that. No, stick to what you're good at, collaborate with someone else that's good at that as well, and you both, well, all three of you win in that scenario. So I love that. We have got Sam saying I love the coffee sessions. Thank you for that. You've got lots of comments over on LinkedIn as well. So let me just put Gerhard's on here and let's see what you think of this. And I can throw this up. Actually, it's probably a little bit long, so it's not going to show up on the whole thing. So what Gerhard's saying is, there's an interesting life I stumbled across. My business is based in Austin. I've successfully built my business with most my developers in South Africa. I've noticed it's hard for them to find work straight out of college, and I've been hiring at that level and growing them. So yeah, you're nodding. Go on, go for it, girls.
That sounds awesome. And Angela, I'm just going to make a correction there, because we would say that name in South Africa as Gerard. Okay, and Gerard, I presume, even though he's living in Austin, in Texas, is South African. So good on you for taking South African talent and growing and nurturing them. We like people like you.
See, I thought it was German and it was Gerhard. Totally fantastic. We've got other people that are on the thread on LinkedIn that are looking for work, so please do go there and have a look afterwards, because people are sharing what they can do. Monica, I'm going to pronounce your surname wrong now as well, Bithar. This is what Monica's got to say.
This is quite entertaining. Angela, can you just read everyone's names for us?
Oh dear, rubbish. Okay, she's saying, from a recruitment perspective for digital marketing, how does the African market perform for experienced resources? I'm going to bring us all on. We can all have a conversation if we want to, as we finish the other questions. Who wants to take that one?
I don't mind taking that, starting. I'm sure Vanessa can add to this though. Nigeria specifically, digital marketing and data analysts are in very high demand. I think on our critical skills list for last year, I don't think they finalized the most recent one. Digital marketing is actually one of our scarce skills in South Africa. So I would like to say for really serious skilled digital marketers, there's probably a huge demand.
Yeah, I would say so. And I'd say that there's a lot of talent. And the reason why there's a lot of talent in this space is because digital marketing, sorry, the cat's irritating me. Digital marketing is one of those skills that can be done remotely. So you can have your digital marketer sitting in South Africa. Great example is a company called Adway that do a lot in that space. Their digital marketer sits in Cape Town. Her name is Kaylin. She's brilliant.
Fantastic. If you want to get that link in there, I'm just putting the Crowdcast link again into LinkedIn. Do come and join us on here. If you click on the recruiting gym at the top and follow us, you'll always get notified. So for like, I can't pronounce it. Gerhard? How did you Gerhard. Okay. You just stumbled across us. We love that. That's why we use the LinkedIn Live as well, because people will find that. But do click on the Crowdcast link, come and follow the recruiting gym, and then whenever we go live, you'll get a 10-minute notification and let you know what we're talking about. You might be interested, because this is what we do. We get people with loads of knowledge to come and help you, to support you, and to do that. And majority of us have been recruiters in the past, or we still are. So certainly those people on the LinkedIn thread that are looking for help. The first thing I would say is look at these ladies' LinkedIn profiles and then look at yours. So have two screens up and have a look. Does yours reflect yourself in a positive way? That's your starting point. So if you are struggling at getting interviews or anything that's happening, a recruiter will go to your LinkedIn if you've got one. And that's the first place they're going to look. Yes, they'll have your CV, but it's the LinkedIn. We want to see you sell yourselves. We want to see what you're capable of. And if it doesn't reflect you in a positive light, I noticed someone on the thread was looking for a chef job. It doesn't matter. If you're on LinkedIn, you've got to portray yourself. So get pictures on there, feature stuff that you've created as a chef, get images on there. And if you need help on that, I have put the pro bono courses in there. We've got 20, 30 sessions on LinkedIn and how to help you. And next week, it's all LinkedIn update week. Yay, Vanessa, you're on with us on Thursday. So all new stuff that's happening on LinkedIn, we'll be reviewing that. So again, resources are there to help you, but you have to help yourself as well. And know that recruiters, that's the first place they're going to look. And if you're not selling yourself on there, they're going to struggle to put you forward to companies, because the company's going to look as well and probably take you out of the process. So whereas you used to have a really brilliant CV, you have to have a really brilliant LinkedIn profile now as well to go with it.
Even further, Angela, you need to have a very good online presence, because if people Google you, LinkedIn's not actually going to be ranking so high in the SEO anymore, because they've redacted some of the information that you can see on profiles by searching via a search engine. So look good on everywhere on the internet. Brilliant.
Okay, let me just double check, see if there's anything else. If not, I can give you a couple of 3-4 minutes back, which would be amazing. Oh no, we have got one. I'm not going to try and
come on, just give it a bash. Just give it a bash.
Okay, I'm going to say Sipokazi Slater. So I can do this. I can do the surname easily. Right, Sipokazi. What can maybe cause a company to stop the recruiting process after an interview is done? Oh, okay, this happens. We feel just as bad as you when this happens, but we've all been there as recruiters. So let's share some of the things that can actually stop the company from carrying on the recruitment process. They've interviewed, they're hoping they're going to get the job, and then all of a sudden it all stops.
I'm going to dive in there, because I want to say there are so many different reasons that this could happen. Literally. But the way around it, Sipokazi, is approach the company and ask them, what could you do better in your next interview? What was it? Because it could be something as simple as there was a stronger candidate than you. There could have been something like you didn't have one of the requirements, or you didn't interview well, or whatever. But you need that information, and you're entitled to that information so that you can do better next time.
Now, I read that differently, that they'd actually put the position on hold.
They could also have done that. There's many reasons why you don't progress, but you need to know what is that reason. Because you could be sitting there thinking all down in the dumps. Meanwhile, the position's been put on hold, and it wasn't anything you did wrong.
Yeah, so sometimes that you haven't actually shown the skills that you've got. A bit like we just said with the LinkedIn profile. In an interview, you may be very, very capable and you know you can do that job. But if you haven't expressed that to what level they're looking for in the interview, or if you haven't gone in deep enough or not mentioned it at all, they can only go on what you're saying. So I do find that a lot of the time I've recruited over 5,000 people in my recruitment career, and it was where people didn't shine during the interview. They didn't give themselves that opportunity. So that's us as recruiters. We have to brief you, give you as much detail as possible, maybe even go through a role play with you to help you to answer those questions and to shine. Gita, what about you're obviously recruiting, you've got your whole company at the moment. What reasons have companies given when they've put it on hold, when something's stopped?
Vanessa's so right. There's just so many reasons. And it could be from they've done it internally to the role has changed and therefore the requirements are now different. But I would like to leave people with one thought. It is an incredibly challenging process looking for a job. Sometimes looking for a job can be a job in itself. And I'd like to say to people, don't allow one decline to define you. It does not determine your self-worth. It does not make you any less valuable, knowledgeable, or skilled than anybody else. In that moment, like Vanessa said, there may just have been somebody who pipped you to the post because they happen to have a smidgen more industry experience than you. And it's tough as it is, but to beat yourself up about it really isn't necessary. You need to be kind to yourself in this process.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to finish, that we as recruiters be kind and as candidates applying for positions, be kind to yourself as well, and think about, what can I do better next time? Every experience is a learning experience, and as Vanessa said quite rightly, we need to make sure that we're getting feedback from the clients. If you've had an interview, make sure that you're asking before you go, will I be able to get 2 or 3 pointers of feedback, both strengths and development areas? That's what we should be doing, and we should be asking every client and passing that on to candidates, whether you get the job or not, because that's helpful. That can help you move into the next round and be better at what you do. Ladies, thank you so much. Really enjoyed that. Learned a lot as well from those. One comment here from Therese: the company could also have promoted internally. Yeah, as I say, there's so many reasons, isn't there? Donovan saying a lot of corporates unfortunately won't give you feedback, even as recruiters with direct access to line HR. Comprehensive feedback is getting blood out of stone with some clients. So put it in as part of your process when you take the job. This is how we work. This is our expectations. It's a service level agreement between the two of you. So for every interview, we expect 2, if not 3 pieces of feedback on that person. So if they know they've got to do it beforehand, and again, book in that time after every interview, book in the feedback time with them, and ideally put them all together so that you can just do it all in one go. Half hour, get feedback on everyone, move forward to the next stage. So these things takes the relationship, doesn't it? Takes picking up the phone and having that conversation. What Sam's saying, okay. Candidates should also be ready to receive honest feedback. Don't get defensive. Oh, it's hard though, isn't it? Yeah, thanks, Sam, for sharing that. I keep looking at Sam and I keep seeing Sharon Stone. Do you get that a lot?
I like that. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Own it.
That's inspiring you in your movie of your life, definitely. From there. Brilliant. Thank you, ladies. Oh, we've gone 1 minute over now, but that's fine. It's been brilliant. Loved it.
Great chat.